Back to 1995 Chapter 1, Start a Ball. Chapter 1 starts with a ball. When Song Yang woke up, he saw a hospital bed with all kinds of medical equipment, and his forehead was still aching. It's not too serious, it should be just a minor concussion. Of course, if you need Greg, you can do further examinations. A tall doctor with chestnut eyes and gray hair. After checking Song Yang's eyes, he said to the middle-aged man with the same appearance but a serious face. It seemed that the two were very familiar. "Thank you, Bree." The middle-aged man known as Greg said with a smile on his face, and said to the doctor who was examining Song Yang. "I told you to stop making trouble." When the doctor left, Greg couldn't help but said to Song Yang on the bed in a serious tone. He seemed very dissatisfied with Song Yang, but looking at Song Yang lying on the hospital bed with a bandage on his head, he finally held back his anger. "I will resolve this matter, he will pay the price he deserves, you stay here to rest today." Greg sighed. As the only bloodline left behind by his younger sister, even if he was very dissatisfied with Song Yang's troubles for so many years, this cheap uncle, Gleik, pinched his nose and recognized it. When he heard about Song Yang's accident today, he rushed over immediately. "Be calm during this time. I'm asking someone to sign a college recommendation letter for you. You can calm down for me," Greg said to Song Yang before going out, and he got up and left regardless of whether Song Yang heard it or not. At this time, Song Yang, who was at a loss, seemed to wake up. He didn't know how he came here suddenly, who was undergoing an operation in the 21st century. There was a sudden sharp pain in his brain, and a lot of memories flooded into Song Yang's mind, making Song Yang finally understand what was going on. For a while, Song Yang didn't know whether to be happy or helpless. Song Yang in his previous life entered a university in Huaguo. Song Yang, who has been immersed in the internet and electronic technology since childhood, is quite talented in internet and electronic design. But before he could show off his skills, he was diagnosed with a malignant disease just after graduation. In the following years, he was admitted to the operating table several times, but obviously the last operation was not able to return to the sky. And now Song Yang has come to America, thousands of miles away. This is Houston, Texas. Stretched out his hand like his forehead, Song Yang couldn't help but have a headache. He couldn't help but cursed secretly. The guy on the baseball team really did something wrong. The reason why Song Yang is lying here now is mostly because of the guy who played tricks in the school baseball team's training game. The original owner of this body was the school baseball team's pitcher, and he was hit during the school baseball team's training game. A stick hit the ball on the head, and only then did Song Yang wake up from here. Heaved a sigh of relief, Song Yang stood up and walked towards the mirror in the ward, and what caught his eye was a mixed race with an oriental face. Looking at the face in the mirror, Song Yang couldn't help touching his face, with black eyes and chestnut hair. Even compared to Hollywood actors and models, this face was no less inferior. The unique softness of the East, coupled with the sense of standing in the West, makes Song Yang look good now. It can be said that he is quite resistant to playing, and he was originally the main force of the school baseball team. Explosive force. Song Yang exercised his muscles and bones, and he could feel the strength of his body. The person in the mirror was the most popular type of girl in the school at this moment. Song Yang recalled those memories and felt that the school baseball team was that guy. I'm afraid it was also because of a girl that he attacked Song Yang. Lying on the bed, Song Yang recalled those memories and understood the origin of this body. Lao Tzu. Song Yang was one of the first people to come to America from China, and he was an out-and-out genius. After graduating from American high school, he successfully stayed at the school to become the youngest associate professor, and then met Song Yang's mother. The Chinese and Italians in America are actually two ethnic groups that get along quite closely. Both have similar lifestyles and values, such as saving and paying attention to credit. Of course, there is another biggest similarity. I also care about face. However, when Song Yang was less than 3 years old, the two had an accident. They were thousands of miles away. Song Yang's father's family didn't know the news at all. Song Yang could only be adopted by his mother's family. It was just following the cheap Uncle Greg. Song Yang's mother and Greg belonged to the Bruno family of Italian descent, and they are of mixed blood from many countries, including Italian, Irish, and Germanic blood. It is no wonder that Song Yang can grow such a good-looking appearance. As for the situation of his father's family, which is thousands of miles away in the east, Song Yang didn't know at all. He only heard that it was a local scholar, but he basically couldn't get in touch now. The Bruno family, the mother family, is not a European noble, just an ordinary family. After rolling over several countries in Europe, they came to America, and I heard that there are several relatives in the Italian peninsula. However, there are quite a few members of the Bruno family, including Song Yang's mother and Greg. There are 6 brothers and sisters, and Greg himself gave birth to 3, so the Bruno family members can be described as numerous. While thinking about this, the door of the ward was pushed open. A girl who was about the same age as Song Yang, 18 or 19, pushed aside the wards and walked in with red eyes, as if she had just cried a lot. "Song, are you alright? Stanton is so rude." As soon as Ibila came in, she said to Song Yang, looking very concerned about Song Yang. If it was the original Song Yang, seeing Ibra's expression, he would probably have forgotten about other things, but Song Yang didn't feel much about this girl who was fashionably dressed in hot pants and had some freckles on her face. Song Yang saw that although Ibra's eyes were red, she did not have a single tear, and her eyes were quietly looking at Song Yang's physical condition, obviously thinking about something. Although Ibra was condemning Stanton who had made a black hand on Song Yang, she actually had a different feeling in her heart. Just today, the school where she and Song Yang are in is already rumored. The 2 members of the school baseball team were jealous and even fought for her, which made Ibra's reputation in the school soar. After all, in her place. A girl of her age, who doesn't want to be a high-profile existence. But Song Yang didn't respond much to Ibra's words, but told her that Greg would solve this matter for Song Yang, which would definitely make Stanton lose his skin. Greg is a lawyer. Although he is not a barrister, he is only a small lawyer in a Houston law firm, but dealing with a rookie like Stanton is still a piece of cake. Perhaps Stanton was just careless. Ibra looked at Song Yang's face and said tentatively to Song Yang, "Let this matter be handled by a lawyer." Song Yang asked Greg to deal with this matter, which was beyond Ibra's expectations. She thought that with Song Yang's character, this matter must be brought back to the scene in person, and another duel with Stanton. In this way, Ibra's popularity in the school will continue, until the graduation prom in a few months. She is probably the man of the school, but she can't think that this time Song Yang will play cards out of common sense. Seeing that Song Yang didn't want to continue talking, Ibra got up and said, "I ran out of school, and I need to go back. Song, I'll be waiting for you at school. It's the school baseball game in a few days. I'll be there. Waiting for you with the cheerleaders." After saying that, Ibra leaned over and placed a slight print on Song Yang's face, leaving a scent of perfume, and then walked out of the ward. Song Yang put aside the figure of Ibra leaving, and shook his head gently. Song Yang could not see any clues before, but now Song Yang, who looks at it as an outsider, can see something in Ibra. Her tea skills were not superb enough, that Stanton suddenly attacked Song Yang, and Ibira probably fanned the flames behind Stanton. It was destined that Song Yang would not be able to rest well today. As soon as Ibra left, the door of the ward was kicked open again. Wow, the next Levia was sent to the hospital by a baseball. A man in his 20s with long hair, wearing sunglasses and wearing this year's most popular striped outfit, walked into the ward. Before the people came in, just listening to the teasing voice, Song Yang knew who was coming, except for the eldest son of the cheap Uncle Greg, who was Song Yang's eldest cousin Gallo. Gallo knows the original Song Yang, and his favorite baseball player is Mariano Rivera. He is the hottest star in the baseball world in recent years. His entry into the baseball industry is enough to make people talk about it. Now has highlighted the true nature of the superstar. Listening to Gallo's ridicule, Song Yang didn't care too much. He could imagine that Gallo was not the only one who made fun of this. A baseball player who was smashed into the hospital with a baseball would definitely go viral. "I will buy Rivera's baseball team and let him play for me," Song Yang replied to Gallo. Gallo burst into laughter, but he didn't care at all. He just thought Song Yang was joking. Lee Whala was in the New York Yankees. Just watching the game on TV, the live tickets are really expensive. As for Song Yang's words to buy the Yankees, Gallo never thought about it. Gallo took off his sunglasses and looked at Song Yang. He was much more rebellious than Song Yang. Song Yang's ability to cause trouble was far worse than Gallo's. Because Gallo likes racing, he tore up a recommendation letter from a college in New York that Gleick finally asked for him, turned to a small startup racing company, and hung out with a few young founders. Lowe's relationship with Greg is very rigid. Would you like me to help? Gallo punched Song Yang's shoulder and said. Song Yang couldn't bear this punch. Song Yang knew what Gallo meant, but just like what he said to Ibra, Song Yang still let Greg handle this matter. Hearing Song Yang's words, Gallo was surprised for a while, but he knew Song Yang's temper and personality. He had always acted recklessly and cared about Face very much. Now he was not in a hurry to get Face back. Even Song Yang, he was about to begin to doubt. After Gallo, a few more people came. Some of Song Yang's friends at school and some members of the Bruno family in Houston came to turn around, but after seeing that Song Yang was okay, they basically turned around. He ran away, leaving only Gallo here. A new book has been opened, and the new book is on the shelves. Recommendations, collections, monthly passes, chapter reviews, recommendation tickets, and comments are all related to whether this book can be recommended by the website later. Please support me a lot. Thank you Yang. End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 2, Enemy Road is Narrow. Chapter 2 The Enemy's Road is Narrow. Speaking of which, Gallo is quite reliable. After tossing around in the ward, after all, we grew up together since childhood. For so many years, Song Yang has basically lived in Gleick's house. Song Yang's parents left too early, and they didn't have time to leave anything like real estate. There was a sum of compensation and insurance premiums, but not too much. Gallo stayed in the ward, lying on a chair nibbling fruit, whistling to the little nurse passing by from time to time, who didn't know it thought that this guy was on vacation. Song Yang went through several inspections and took some medicines. Anyway, these expenses were ultimately borne by Stanton's family. Song Yang would not feel bad for him, but after inspection, he was basically sure that there was nothing serious. There is a small old TV in the ward with a program from a small local station in Houston. Song Yang's mind was not on the TV, but a little dazed. The time he heard on TV was in early 1995, and Song Yang had no idea what the scene was outside. At this time, Greg walked into the ward with a sullen face. After seeing Gallo, there was no good face at all. The Stanton family is willing to make compensation, $3,000, and Stanton will apologize to you in public when he is on the school baseball team. This is the end of the matter. Gleick said to Song Yang. $3,000 is definitely not a small sum now. The average income of America is now less than $30,000 a year. Not to mention that the people in America are famous for their early consumption, they don't have a dime in their hands, and they take out thousands of dollars abruptly. Song Yang didn't know the specific circumstances of Stanton's family, but it was by no means an outstanding family. After all, the Devers school where Song Yang was currently attending was a barely famous school in Houston, and he joined the family of this school. Students are basically below the middle class. I see. Song Yang nodded when he heard Gleick's words, got up and picked up his things to leave. Seeing Song Yang's actions, Gleick's remaining words were kept in his stomach. According to Song Yang's previous character, at this time there must be thousands of people who don't care. He wants to get back to Stanton, and he won't listen to Gleick's words at all, but now Song Yang doesn't seem to pay too much attention to Stanton's appearance. Donna is ready for dinner. Seeing that Song Yang really didn't intend to trouble Stanton again, Greg heaved a sigh of relief and said to him. As for Gallo, who was on the side, he didn't have any intention of taking care of him. Anna is Greg's wife, a standard housewife, who is basically responsible for taking care of Greg's family. She is also very good to Song Yang. Song Yang can live to this day without Anna's care. Song Yang and Gleick got out of the hospital and got into an old Ford. Gallo, who was behind him, waved to Song Yang and got into an off-road vehicle that was made up. And go. Sitting in a slightly bumpy old Ford car, he drove towards Greg's house and entered a middle-class family community. Although Greg is a lawyer, he is considered a high income in America, but he cannot be famous as a barrister. The income will not be too high. In addition to the need for the entire Gleek family, only he has an income, and he has to provide for the three of Gallo to go to school and pay for various insurance costs. Gleek's life is actually not very good. Gleek's house is a single-family house, not luxurious, but the room is enough. Song Yang and Gallo and others basically have a separate bedroom, and there is a garage and a small swimming pool at the back. This can be regarded as maintaining the dignity of a lawyer, but for this reason, Greg has to pay a large amount of property tax every year. Song Yang heard from memory that Anna complained about this fee more than once. Song. As soon as he entered the door, Anna, who was busy in the kitchen, ran over immediately. Looking at Song Yang, who had a bandage on her head, she immediately hugged Song Yang and called out to God bless. "I'm fine." Song Yang squeezed out a smile, took off the bandage on his head, and said to Anna. He could see that Anna really cared about him, and then said to the two who came over, Logan, Milia. Logan and Milia are Gleek's second son and youngest daughter. They are both a few years younger than Song Yang. Unlike Gallo, Logan is very quiet and outstanding in his studies. Gleek has high hopes for him, but he does not follow him. Song Yang's relationship is not very close. As for Milia, she is only under 7 years old. Compared to Gallo, who never comes back, and Logan, who is often alone, Miria is very close to Song Yang, who often takes her to play with. As soon as she sees Song Yang, leaned on Song Yang's side. "God bless, there's no big deal. I said, don't get into any school baseball team, it's too dangerous." Donna complained to Glick while carrying the dishes, thinking that he had agreed to let Song Yang enter the school baseball team, is an error. Greg snorted and didn't speak. He initially agreed to Song Yang's entry into the school's baseball team in the hope that Song Yang could rely on baseball to get recruited and full scholarships from prestigious schools. Inheriting a bit of the talent of his genius father that day, learning is a mess, even more sloppy than Gallo. Greg admired Song Yang's father very much. Back then, the Bruno family had no prejudice or discrimination against Song Yang's mother and Song Yang's father. You must know that if you can come to America by yourself, graduate from a prestigious school, and become the youngest associate professor in the college, you can imagine the future. Anyway, in the academic industry, the entire Bruno family has not yet appeared. As a result, when he arrived at Song Yang's original body, he didn't know what was wrong, and Gleik wanted to send him to a famous school, but since he was a child, he never let Gleik worry about his studies, let alone an Ivy League school. Now, it's an ordinary high school, and it's a bit strenuous, and Greg has a headache for it. "Song, I made your favorite Chinese dish." Anna excitedly put a mushy dish in front of Song Yang, obviously putting a lot of thought into it. Song Yang looked at the dish in front of him, and his brows twitched fiercely, but looking at Anna's expectant look, he took a bite. There is no dark dish as imagined, but boiled tomatoes, potatoes and beef are mixed together, and there are not many seasonings, with a sweet taste. The taste is really not very good. With Anna staring at it, Song Yang could only gorge on it. When Anna was not paying attention, Song Yang used a spoon to scoop up a large portion of Anna's delicious food and put it on Milia's plate. "Yang eat one." Seeing that Song Yang seemed to be eating happily, Anna showed a satisfied smile. As a housewife, her biggest achievement every day was naturally the cooked meals that were swept away by the crowd. Dana's meals are mainly Italian style. Compared with the high-calorie, high-sugar hamburgers, cream and other foods in the slums, there are a lot of vegetables on the table at Gleik's house, so the family basically is a normal body type. After eating, Donna packed up and watched soap operas with Greg, while Song Yang returned to the room. Lying on a bed that was both familiar and unfamiliar, Song Yang began to organize his thoughts for the day while looking at the small room with some baseball star posters on the walls. This is 1995, there is no accident, and it is America, which is thousands of miles away from the East. Thinking of the current situation and the worries about the family of future generations, Song Yang can't help but feel confused for a while, and then a sense of exhaustion appears, which makes Song Yang feel confused. Song Yang fell into sleep. In the morning, Song Yang was woken up by Miria, who entered the room. Miria, who was wearing a dress, raised her head and shouted to Song Yang, "It's time to eat, I'm going to be late." Miria and Song Yang went to school on the same road, and it was naturally Song Yang who took her to school. Looking at Miria, who looked like a little adult, Song Yang couldn't help but stretch out her hand and squeeze Miria's baby fat face, which caused Miria to scream. Got up and filled in a few things, and Song Yang took Miria out the door. Along the way, he saw the buildings on the street that were completely different from the 21st century in China, which made Song Yang feel like he was in a different world. Looking at the scene in front of him, Song Yang took a deep breath, ready to clarify his current situation before making plans, but after coming to school for a day, Song Yang felt a little numb. Yuanshan's study is basically a scum, and it can't leave any useful memory for Song Yang, and the basic courses such as history and geography to be studied here are completely different from those taught in China, which makes one day Song Yang who came down. Apart from being able to cope with mathematics, the rest of the courses only felt that his hips were very strong. At this level, Song Yang felt that not to mention getting into a prestigious school, I'm afraid it would be enough to get into a community college. As Gleek, he would definitely not be able to get a recommendation letter from a prestigious school for Song Yang. Not only academically, but after joining the school baseball team, Song Yang's performance was also great at pulling his hips. Sports competitions are an industry with extremely high physical demands. But now that he has the memory of his original body, Song Yang is very familiar with baseball, but for Song Yang, who has never been in contact with baseball before, this is a kind of weird. It feels familiar but very unfamiliar. From an amateur level, Song Yang played pretty well, but in the game, he missed by 1,000 miles, and his performance can be imagined. During the training of the school baseball team, Song Yang seemed a little out of place, which made everyone on the school baseball team a little surprised, and the coach, Old Mark, was even more furious, wondering if Song Yang was really screwed by Stanton's ball. After training for only a moment, Song Yang took the initiative to get off the field, took off his gloves, and pinched his face. He felt that recruiting into a famous school through baseball might not work. According to the current situation, if Song Yang's baseball level is to return to his original level, he will not be able to do it in a short time, not to mention that there will be a baseball game with other schools in the future, and even if it is restored to the original level, his level, with Song Yang's talent, is probably not the best in this industry. Just when Song Yang sighed, a figure entered the training ground. Seeing that person, Song Yang clenched his fists unconsciously. Song Yang immediately knew who this person was, and could make him have this kind of reaction unconsciously. Yeah, who else but Stanton? End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 3, Things Are Different. Chapter 3. Song Yang's body's instinctive reaction. He can know how the original body feels about this thing. It can be said that he hates it so much. On the contrary, now that he has Song Yang, he doesn't have much feeling for Stanton. If it wasn't for his baseball, Song Yang probably wouldn't have come here. Stanton's stature is quite tall and burly, and those who don't know at first glance think that he is playing rugby, but compared to Song Yang, in terms of appearance, Stanton is more like a bear. Only someone like Stanton would be fooled by a tea master like Ibra to get along with Song Yang, otherwise anyone with a discerning eye would be able to know who the girl should choose between Song Yang and Stanton. As soon as they saw Stanton entering the school baseball team's training ground, everyone in the baseball team looked at Stanton. Stanton walked toward Song Yang, and the baseball coach Mark also looked here. Stanton blushed and looked at Song Yang with a face full of uneasiness. He didn't want to apologize to Song Yang, but he remembered what happened yesterday. And what Gleek said to his family. Stanton had to apologize to Song Yang in a barely audible voice in front of the entire baseball team. But looking at Stanton's aggrieved face, he knew that he was not so reluctant, and it was naturally Greg who could let him come. Although it's just a small lawyer, picking up the Stanton family is very easy. It's nothing more than threatening to sue Stanton and so on. Even if he can't go to jail, it can ruin Stanton's road to college, and he the future of the family, etc. Like Song Yang, Stanton and the rest of the baseball team all hope to win the favor of elite schools through baseball games, and have never been recruited directly. If they are lucky enough to enter the Major League Baseball and become a star, that is enough to change. The fate of a family. If this road is ruined, it will be a huge blow to the Stanton family. So many years of hard work will be in vain. This is also the reason why the Stanton family is willing to compensate. This shows the role of lawyers here. No one wants to offend a lawyer like a vulture, even if Greg is an unknown little lawyer. Staring at the Stanton family's taxes and other problems can make it impossible for the family to live. After finished speaking, Stanton stared at Song Yang. I will never let go of Ibra. Song Yang looked at Stanton and waved his hand casually. He really didn't have the heart to care about a tea master with Stanton, but in Stanton's eyes, this was Chiguagua's disregard and provocation. Starting from today, both of you will be transferred to the bench. If something like this happens, just disappear from the Devers baseball team. Old Mark roared at Song Yang and Stanton with a bad expression. The fighting within the team is undoubtedly a challenge to the head coach's authority in the locker room. Even the locker room can't be controlled, so what kind of games are played? Hearing that he was going to be transferred to the bench, Stanton opened his mouth wide and his face was full of frustration. This was a big blow to him, but Song Yang didn't feel anything. On the school baseball team, Song Yang used the equipment of the baseball team to do basic training. Ever since he got sick in his previous life, Song Yang has never been sweating like this. When Song Yang was at the training ground, several waves of people came to see Song Yang, mainly Devers girls. Originally at Devers High School, the most popular player was definitely the one on the football team. Help people, but since Song Yang joined Devers baseball team, the popularity of the baseball team, especially among Devers girls, has skyrocketed. The girls who came to watch the training on the side of the baseball team's training ground basically focused on Song Yang. Without comparison, there would be no harm. Compared with the rest of the baseball team, Song Yang's appearance is undoubtedly far beyond a big chunk. Seeing this scene, Stanton could only do strength training even more helplessly. He was used to it, just like Ibra who first started chasing after him, but when Song Yang appeared, Ibra followed suit. Song Yang was in a fiery fight. Stanton could only stare at Song Yang with bitterness and hatred, and then continued training with a humming, as if preparing to use a baseball bat next time to blow the next opponent's forehead. Song. When Song Yang just came off the court to rest, he immediately handed a bottle of water to the side. Song Yang looked up, and his eyes lit up. The person in front of him is more than 1.6 meters tall, with long pale blonde hair. He is not as thin as those celebrities. His facial features are very delicate, his lips are slightly thick, and his face has pear eddies when he smiles. Similar, the key is that the body is much more broken than Daniel Campbell. Compared to the girl in front of her, Ibra, the master of tea art, is basically a skinny sparrow, except that she dresses up a little hotter. I don't know if it was influenced by the original body. Song Yang, who considers himself a gentleman, looked up after seeing the majestic girl in front of him, Jenny. Hearing Song Yang mention her name, Jenny, whose face was a little red, still sat beside Song Yang. Are you all right, Song? Jenny saw that Song Yang didn't participate in the team's training, and looked at Song Yang's head with concern. She heard that Song Yang's head was attacked by the big bear Stanton with a baseball. Fortunately, Song Yang hadn't forgotten her yet. Song Yang said vaguely, there is some influence, it may take me a while to get back to my state. Even if you don't plan to rely on baseball to get into a famous school, you can't do it overnight. If you want to quit, you have to put on Stanton. If you want people to mention Song Yang, it's a pity that it's because of Stanton. A genius comparable to Rivera, sadly left the baseball world. Looking at Jenny who was sitting with Song Yang, the girls around the training ground didn't know how many times they scolded Bai Chi in their hearts. They felt that Jenny was taking advantage of Song Yang's injury, but unfortunately, why didn't you take the chance? I participated in the interview for the School of Art of Southern Methodist University, and I don't know if I have a chance to enter. Jenny said to Song Yang with excitement. Southern Methodist University is the center of Texas and a group of middle and upper middle class white men in the South of America. The college of choice for families. Now that Song Yang and the others have graduated from high school, it has only been less than half a year. Naturally, they have all started to look for colleges on their own. As for those who say that Amelia and college do not depend on their families, they are basically bullshitting. It doesn't matter if the family is just about the recommendation letter. Without the endorsement of powerful figures, countless prestigious schools have closed their doors. Song, which university are you going to go to? Hearing Jenny mention this, Song Yang had a headache and could only shake his head. Now it's not a question of which university Song Yang wants to go to, but where he can go. I'm still choosing. In the baseball training ground, Song Yang and Jenny became familiar with each other. Compared with Ibra, Song Yang was more willing to contact Jenny. Looking at Song Yang and Jenny who were fighting so hot, old Mark couldn't stand it anymore and called Song Yang away. Song Yang and Jenny said a few words, and after leaving the phone, they followed old Mark to the office of the training ground. Song, you need to get back in shape as soon as possible, you only have half a year left, and if you can't let the scouts of the NCAA college baseball team who are watching the game take a look, you will lose the college baseball team recruitment, and you won't be able to get a scholarship. Old Mark has a lot of forehead lines on his face, and his hair is a little gray. It can be seen that he has put a lot of effort into the baseball team. Old Mark's most glorious moment was when he was on the school baseball team in college, and won the state baseball championship. Although he lost in the NCAA Baseball Championship World Series, he was considered a genius, but because of Old Mark's talent, he was not able to entering Major League Baseball, and becoming a professional baseball player can only squat as a coach on a high school baseball team. Song Yang was recruited by Old Mark to the school baseball team. Of course, he knew how talented Song Yang was. In fact, the talents of the entire DeVry school baseball team were not too high. There was no way to recruit and train talented players. In terms of money, in Devers' estate, it is very difficult to raise a baseball team. Although it is a bit difficult to enter the professional baseball league, there is still a chance to get into college by relying on baseball. Old Mark doesn't want Song Yang to waste such an opportunity. Seeing Song Yang leaving the office, Old Mark sighed deeply. Just now he saw that Song Yang didn't seem to be so enthusiastic about baseball. Originally, he only needed a few hits to make Song Yang excited. The girl at the training ground was seen as woo-woo, but now it seems to be useless at all. In the next few days, Song Yang's life seemed to be stabilized. He went back and forth between Devers' school and Greg's house every day. In his studies, except for mathematics, the other subjects were a mess. Although he was still on the school baseball team, Song Yang was more of a go there for a workout and then have a relationship with Jenny. Song Yang has a thorough understanding of the present, but the more he understands, the more helpless Song Yang feels. Song Yang is undoubtedly the most familiar with the technology industry, and through the information collected in the past few days, Song Yang has an understanding of the current technology industry. It is now 1995. Microsoft and Cisco have just been selected into the Nasdaq constituent stocks. Although they have become representatives of the technology industry, they are far from becoming the overlords of the global industry. Even in America, the internet is still just a concept. It mainly serves offices, not the public and entertainment. Microsoft and Cisco have the highest market capitalization in the technology industry. Apple is now making soy sauce. As for several companies with the concept of the internet, that makes Song Yang even more helpless. He has never heard of it. The companies with the highest market value on the internet are the web company responsible for website hosting, and an online house rental company. The Springer Group, the digital publisher of the third largest internet company. As for those tech giants that Song Yang has heard of in later generations, I haven't seen any of them. Yahoo is still called the Internet Navigation Guide, and Amazon is still not there, not to mention Google, Facebook, etc., but Song Yang is there. I have seen it on an economic channel on TV, reporting on the rising star Netscape of Silicon Valley. End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 4, Steps for Collection. Chapter 4 Steps for Collection. Now the technology frenzy has not yet begun, and the myth of the internet making wealth is still unknown. Even Microsoft, Cisco and others have spent years to get to where they are today, and it is still too early to be a real giant. As for Song Yang, not to mention, now Song Yang is just an ordinary student of Devers. In front of him, how can he enter a college in half a year? Otherwise, wait for half a year after that, Song Yang would probably get a fast food restaurant like McDonald's or KFC, wasting years. A clever woman is hard to cook without rice, and a penny beats a hero. Even if you know Yahoo and the like, but you want to hug your thighs, there is no chance at all. As for the investment, it is even more bullshit. How much money to pay, let alone make Greg willing to hand over the money to Song Yang to invest? Knowing his situation, Song Yang was even more helpless. Now he knew why so many people took risks for the first pot of gold. The first pot of gold is more like a key. Without this key, there is no way to go to the next step, and you can only be trapped in place. Walking on the streets of Houston and passing by the largest Bilbao Vizcaya bank in the Houston area, Song Yang unconsciously glanced a few times. If he can get a sum of money now, just invest in those well-known tech giants, maybe in a few years, Song Yang will also be able to get the title of stock god. But it's impossible now. No one will give money to a little-known and unknown person, and he is a rookie boy who does not even have a professional economic license. If he invests in the so-called internet concept industry, he will basically be regarded as a lunatic. That's it. Now let alone in other places, even in America, the concept of the internet is a new thing, and many people regard this industry as a scam. After all, there are only less than 6 million netizens in America. This is already the region with the most internet users in the world, and other regions can be imagined. After coming out of Devers school, Song Yang, who was a little depressed, came to an apartment. As soon as he entered the door, he saw a woman in a bathrobe, came out of the bathroom, and when she saw Song Yang, Hailey, who was wrapped in a bathrobe, greeted Song Yang. "Song, I heard Gallo say. You are injured, you didn't hurt your face." Seeing this bitch, she didn't look like a good person. Seeing Song Yang's depressed expression, Hailey giggled and returned to Gallo's bedroom. This apartment is Gallo's den, and it is also the place where the original Song Yang and others often gather for parties. Hailey is Gallo's girlfriend, and now she is a small model. There are many girls in the film and television industry, but there are not many who can really stand on the ground. More like Hailey, who slowly hang out and wait for an opportunity that may not be available for a lifetime. Song Yang turned on a TV familiarly. Gallo's place is not big, but TVs, speakers, VCRs, Sony game consoles, etc. are all readily available, and there are constant parties on weekdays. After a while, Gallo and Hailey came out of the bedroom together, took out a few bottles of wine from an old refrigerator, and handed it to Song Yang. One of the reasons why many men and women came here was the supply of wine. After all, in other places, you can't sell wine to someone of Song Yang's physical age, but you can drink wine here. Hailey lit a lady's cigarette and entered this line. Hailey also got into some bad habits, leaned on Gallo, and teased Song Yang. "Song, do you need me to introduce you to a girl?" "No worse than that, Bella." After thinking about it for a long time, Hailey finally remembered Ibra's name. She remembered that Song Yang brought the thin hemp pole to the apartment party. She was a model, so she knew a lot of girls in this line of work. With Song Yang's good looks, Hailey it doesn't seem to be a problem at all. Compared with the male models she knows, her appearance is even higher than that of the male models, which is enough for those hoofs to follow each other. And by virtue of the opportunity to introduce Song Yang to those little hooves, Hailey might be able to obtain some resources, which is like killing two birds with one stone. Being watched by Hailey, Song Yang felt like he was being watched by wolves. He felt that Hailey was not a good person, and he didn't know what would happen to the woman he introduced to him. Hurriedly waved his hand to refuse. This thing was provoked by that idiot Stanton. "I'm not in the mood right now. I was transferred to the bench in the baseball team. I'm afraid it will be difficult to get recruited by the university." Hearing Song Yang's words, Gallo raised his head. He naturally knew that Song Yang's original level of study was scumbag. He said that Gallo had been fooling around for a few years, and his grades were better than Song Yang's. Once he failed to get college recruitment in baseball, then Song Yang's university road is likely to be interrupted. "Are your motor nerves injured?" Gallo looked at Song Yang up and down. It was not uncommon for an athlete to suffer a serious decline in the game after an injury, but Gallo always felt that Song Yang seemed to have changed a bit these days, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. Song Yang took a sip of his drink. I don't know, but I can't get into the state of the game, maybe I need to slowly find the state. In the small apartment, the atmosphere was a bit dull for a while. Gallo and Haley had already entered the society and were severely beaten by the society. They already knew how absurd the idea of not going to college a few years ago was. Just bullshit. Gallo thought that if he obeyed Gleick's arrangement and entered a university to major in law or finance, he should have interned at a law firm or Wall Street at this time, instead of working in a car repairing company with a racing car all day. The shop is busy. Haley also thought that if she has experience in art academy, whether it is to enter Hollywood or become a reporter on a TV station, the chances are far greater than being a wild model now. Now hearing that Song Yang might not be able to enter the university, Gallo and Haley were a little dull for a while. Gallo patted Song Yang on the shoulder and had a cup of tea with Song Yang. At this time, someone came in the apartment again. A tall and thin man came in and sat on the sofa familiarly. Song Yang remembered that his name was Ryan and he was in the same racing company as Gallo. After sitting down, Ryan said to Gallo, "Here's a big job. Cole sent 3 Toyotas and we need to repair." Cole is the leader of a small gang in Houston. The gang likes to have a red viper tattooed on their arms, so they are called the Red Snake Gang. Such small gangs are almost as numerous in America. It sounds like the Red Snake Gang, and it seems that bigger is very tall. In fact, what he does is sneaky selling, stealing cars and reassembling them for a living. This is obviously a private job, but Gallo is no stranger to it. He now owns this racing company. It sounds like it mainly designs high-performance racing cars, but it costs money. No, the big dog owners support research and development, and they can only find ways to raise funds by themselves. The auto repair shop is now the main business of the racing company, but sometimes it also takes on some high-profit, private jobs, and it is about to starve to death. Where can I take care of other things? If that racing company failed to make a name for itself in the future, it would be fine, but if it succeeds, all the stains of today can be washed away, which is basically the first pot of gold. Gallo was talking to Haley and Ryan, and they were going to hold a party at night. Well, the name was to celebrate Song Yang's return from injury, and it could even be related to Song Yang. Song Yang didn't pay attention to those. At the moment, he focused all his attention on the NBC TV station on TV. This is an economic talk show on NBC. The host is in the same studio with 2 people. One of them is a well-known investor on Wall Street, who mainly invests in traditional industries. At the moment, he is arguing with another person in the live broadcast room. The internet is a scam. Just like Netscape, which is being touted by the Silicon Valley gang, there is no profit model at all, and it cannot prove that it can survive. This investor is mainly in traditional industries such as investment banking and aviation. He doesn't care about the internet, which does not know when it will make money, and thinks it is a scam. The one who was attacked was a professor of a network laboratory at a university in New York, avoiding the topic of profit and saying, "The United Network Committee of America has defined the internet as a global information system. In the future, internet users in America will be with a growth rate of 23%, as long as there are enough users, this market will definitely exist, and the future must belong to the world of the internet." This professor's vision is naturally excellent, but the investors on the opposite side are chasing after him, how to make a profit. The investors invested the money in Netscape and those companies, how will they get it back in the future? The university professor in the NBC studio was stunned with embarrassment. This is indeed a very real problem. The cake is indeed drawn, and it may not be edible. Afterwards, the host of the show called the Wall Street analyst and asked him for his opinion. Basically, he was biased. He was very optimistic about the potential of the internet, but he couldn't say how to make profits and return investors. To put it directly, after the listing in the future, the venture capital companies will directly cash out and run away. Now the profit of the internet software industry is basically based on selling software, just like Microsoft and Oracle, but in the entire internet industry, how many Microsoft and Oracle have become irreplaceable existences on the internet? Song Yang's eyes were fixed on the TV, watching the investor named Christian Barnard on the TV, who was chattering non-stop. His mind was shaking, and a vague idea appeared in his mind, which made Song Yang a little bit hesitant and excited. The internet can develop into later generations. One thing that makes countless internet users hate, but supports the existence of internet companies is indispensable, that is internet advertising. Just like the importance of advertising to TV stations, without advertising, the TV media industry would not have developed to where it is today, and TV advertising has changed the media industry. The same is true for internet advertising. Nearly half of the revenue of the major internet giants in later generations comes from this. Song Yang watched the TV, and he didn't even hear Gallo's cry. This was an opportunity. For Song Yang, it was an excellent opportunity. A key was placed in front of him, but he wanted to. It's not that easy to get. Munshine is looking for belts, collections, investments, comments, recommendation tickets, and all kinds of requests. Gentlemen, please support me. End of this chapter. Back to 1995. Chapter 5, The First Person to Eat Crabs. Chapter 5, The First Person to Eat Crabs. Seeing Song Yang staring at the TV and ignoring his words, Gallo couldn't help but worry for a while, and said to Hailey, "Song, isn't there really something wrong with his brain?" Hailey saw Song Yang with a focused expression, like an exquisite oil painting, and felt that the little wave hoofs she knew would be unable to hold back when she saw this scene. "It's not because of a woman. I'll call a few more girls tonight, and I'm sure Song will forget that skinny sparrow tomorrow," Hailey said to Gallo. "Song." Gallo patted Song Yang on the shoulder. Song Yang turned his head at this time, looked at Gallo and said something thoughtless. "Someone has to do it, why can't it be me?" Hearing this thoughtless sentence, Gallo was even more worried. He felt that he had to hire an Indian wizard to give Song Yang a spiritual connection. He heard a lot of things that the hospital could not detect. As a country where all the people believe in religion, even the chief commander holds a scripture in his hand when he takes office. Not to mention that people in this area are not superstitious, otherwise there will not be so many cults, sorcerers, psychics, and the like. This piece of pimples is popular, and it is full of deceit. Song Yang didn't know what Gallo and Hailey were thinking about. At this moment, he was having a thought that made him both nervous and excited. Now is the eve of the global internet wave. Those well-known technology giants are either just established at this moment, or they are still faltering to find a way out. Song Yang never thought that he would stand up at this moment and collide head-on with those big men who used to be on TV stations, magazines, and even textbooks. He is just an ordinary person from a later university with a little bit of technical talent. His previous wish was only to be able to enter a first-line internet company to beg for food after graduation. And now, Song Yang saw a road appear in front of him, which made him both excited and uneasy. He didn't know what would happen if he faced those big names who used to be famous. But just now, Song Yang inexplicably thought of a sentence, "Someone has to do it, why can't it be him?" This made Song Yang's heart pounding. At this time, he stood up. In the future, he will be able to leave his name in the global internet industry, not to mention a person who is called the ancestor of Taoism. Thinking of this, Song Yang is not hesitating. He basically has nothing to hesitate now. At most, he will waste half a year of time, and then he will not be able to go to college. He will go to KFC to serve dishes. The college invited Song Yang Chao to investigate. "Gallo, help me buy the recent issues of Popular Magazine, Wired, The New York Observer, and Computer Magazine." Looking at Song Yang, Gallo looked even more worried, but he knew that Song Yang didn't like these things at all before. The stadium, parties, and girls were Song Yang's favorites, but now he wants it for the pile of broken books. "Give up tonight's party, that's not what's wrong." Gallo looked at Song Yang and said tentatively, "Song, I remember there was a famous psychic on 13th Street, maybe we need to go there." Song Yang ignored Gallo, who was talking nonsense. He was going to go downstairs and buy back all the recent technology and economic newspapers. Before going out, Song Yang changed his shoes and said to Gallo and Hailey, "This is very important, not only about me, but also about whether your repair shop can be turned into a racing company. Hailey, whether you can enter Hollywood or not depends on this time." After Song Yang left, Gaylor, Hailey, and Ryan were left looking at each other in dismay. Ryan was stunned for a moment, then looked at both Gilo and Haley and laughed. Don't you really believe what he said? Bar. But how do I feel, this time Song, maybe there is really hope. Hailey whispered, this time Song Yang was more serious than ever before. Of course, this has something to do with Song Yang's appearance, the same thing if you follow lie if it came out of her mouth, then she regarded it as a fart. Trust me Gallo, Ryan said after taking a sip of his drink, mocking himself with his experience. Gallo, I don't know what this guy Song wants to do, but you have also seen the experience of our racing company over the past few years, do you think he can do it? Looking at Ryan who was shaking his head, Gallo also felt unsure, but he still refuted Ryan for Song Yang. No matter what Song wants to do, I will support him this time. When we started this racing company, we didn't like it either. People support. Seeing Gallo and Haley getting up, they were really going to find those broken magazines all over Houston for Song Yang. Ryan couldn't help shaking his head. The party at night was definitely over, and he was going to get up and change the venue. It was already late at night, and the lights in Gallo's small apartment were still bright. Haley had already fallen asleep. Gallo was bored with Song Yang, and there were already a pile of wine bottles and cigarette butts on the ground. Seeing Song Yang who finally put down the last magazine and began to pinch his brows, Gallo couldn't help but ask, Song, what are you going to do? Gallo observed Song Yang. He was not afraid of Song Yang doing ridiculous things, but he was really afraid that Song Yang would get into something unscientific, and he was still wondering if he should invite a psychic to come over. If Song Yang knew that Gallo was thinking about this shit, he would have poured him a few bottles of whiskey to cool down. Took one out of Gallo's cigarette case and took a puff. Song Yang, who had been exposed to this for the first time, couldn't help coughing, but he felt much better. He knew that he would have to give Gallo and Greg an explanation, and then he would need their help. Today I was watching TV, Professor Tristan from New York University, debated with Barnard, and an idea arose, maybe I have a way to solve the current predicament of the internet. Song Yang took a puff of cigarette and then took a sip of wine and said, this thing is definitely not healthy, but it is refreshing enough. Song Yang in the previous life has never experienced it. Hearing Song Yang's words, Gallo's eyes widened. He asked himself if his IQ was passable, but after watching TV, he realized the problem. He wondered if they were watching the same TV, or why did he see soap operas and those celebrities entertain news, but Song Yang can find the problem. Gallo opened his mouth, he wanted to ask how Song Yang saw this, but then he thought, Song Yang has the inheritance of his genius father of that day, being able to see this seems like a small problem at all. Gallo still has some experience after all, although the racing company he works for is basically a grass team, but Gallo knows how difficult it is to do things. What are you going to do? Gallo asked, looking at Song Yang. Song Yang lay on the sofa and stretched his tired body. I can only find Uncle Greg, and take out that compensation. Song Yang knew that Greg kept a sum of compensation for Song Yang and his mother when they passed away, and Greg had never touched the money for so many years. Greg's character is still guaranteed, not to mention that he still has the status of a lawyer. After so many years, he has treated Song Yang like himself, but he has treated Song Yang the same as Gallo and Logan. There will be no shortage of food and clothing. The money Greg once said was used when Song Yang was in college. Hearing that Song Yang had actually made up the idea of the money, Gallo gave Song Yang a self-seeking look, but he knew Gleik's temper and was really not that easy to talk about. Gallo made an expression of helplessness. If this was replaced by the money Gallo and Greg had raised, it would have been a filial father-son shootout. You have to tell the old man yourself, but if you need my help, you can tell me. Although Gallo supported him verbally, in fact, like Ryan, he did not have much hope for Song Yang Bao. Every year, the people who start a business in America are like Jiang Jiqing, but there is no one in a million, let alone Song Yang. Yang had no experience or funds at all, and Gallo felt that the wind might pass, and Song Yang would die. There is indeed one thing I need your help with. Song Yang scoured the memory in his mind. I remember that you have a classmate in the Department of Computer Science at the University of Houston named Jaden, Bledsoe Jaden. You met him, remember when I took you to the prom, and you hooked up with a senior, who is also at the University of Houston, before. Ask Jaden about you. Speaking of this, Gal Loco was no longer sleepy, he immediately thought of it, and spoke with great interest. Song Yang's face was dark when he heard it. This is nothing. Why does he feel that this predecessor is unreliable and powerful, and he doesn't know where he buried the thunder? This is Jaden, can you help me get in touch with him? I might need to meet him. Song Yang quickly interrupted Gallo's recollection. When Gallo heard this, he immediately said in a big way, no problem, anytime, Jaden is also my brother. Song Yang automatically filtered out Gallo's words. It's useless to say these words now. Only when it comes to the beautiful knife can he see a person's face clearly. After a sleepy night, Gallo went back to his room. Song Yang was sitting on the sofa in the living room, and now Song Yang couldn't sleep at all. The thought of going on stage and colliding with the characters in the textbook made Song Yang a little bit crushed. Turn the opposite side. With dark circles under his eyes in the morning, after going to Devers school, Song Yang's mind was not in the classroom at all, and he didn't go to the baseball training ground in the afternoon. Jenny, who had been playing hot these days, only explained. Song Yang hurried back to the Greg's house. Aunt Donna. As soon as Song Yang entered the door, he poked his head and looked towards the study. Anna was surprised when she saw Song Yang coming back so early. Song Yang seldom returned so early, and not coming back at night was the norm. Seeing Song Yang looking at the study, Anna couldn't help but wonder if Song Yang had done something else. What a moth! Anna would not be surprised if she brought back a grandchild one day. Greg is in the study, is there something wrong, do you want me to tell him? Donna asked. No, Song Yang exhaled deeply, I'll go talk to Uncle Greg. When Song Yang entered the study, not as expected by Anna, within 2 minutes, Greg's angry voice came from the study. End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 6, Garage, Recommended Ticket. Chapter 6 Garage, Recommended Ticket. Greg's face was serious, and he stared at Song Yang across the desk with suppressed anger. That money was left by Catherine at the end, are you going to squander it now? Catherine is Song Yang's mother and the youngest of the Gleek brothers and sisters. When the old Bruno and his wife were busy outside, Gleek was basically taking care of Catherine, and they naturally had a close relationship. Song Yang didn't dodge and looked into Greg's eyes, I need that money, not squander it. Song Yang and Greg stared at each other for a while. Greg looked at Song Yang with a serious face, not like he was joking, and finally said slowly, why? Heaved a sigh of relief. Song Yang felt that the original body of this body was indeed quite frightening for the cheap Uncle Gleik, and his calf was trembling unconsciously just now. Song Yang told Greg what he said to Greg again. Greg was also a little dazed after hearing this. Of course he knew about the computer. The small law firm he was in had already started to use the computer for office work, but Song Yang was at a loss. The words of internet companies, websites, digital advertisements, etc., made Gleek a little at a loss. These are beyond his understanding, and he has never dealt with such a lawsuit before. But Gleik thought about these things with his understanding, and made a rough idea. Are you going to open an advertising company? Is an internet advertising media company? Song Yang corrected Gleik's mistake, but Gleik didn't get rounded in again and waved his hand. It's an advertising company. Who are you going to advertise for, and where are you going? Song Yang had a headache when he was asked, but looking at Gleik with a serious face, Song Yang saw a loss insurance bill on Gleik's desk, one of America's top 10 insurance giants. This bill cost Gleik several $1,000s, and of course Song Yang's share was included. This was something Gleik had to pay every year. As long as he was in America, he couldn't avoid it. Pointing to the bill of Los Angeles Insurance, Song Yang looked at Greg and said, maybe in the future, Los Angeles Insurance will also advertise on Microsoft through internet advertising companies. Hearing Song Yang's words, Greg couldn't help but chuckle. He felt that Song Yang was joking. Of course, he was no stranger to Los Insurance. He was like a vampire every year, sucking a lot of money from him. As for Microsoft, Greg has long heard of it. After all, there is not much media coverage, and there are rumors that this year Bill Gates is likely to become the world's richest man. Hearing that Song Yang wanted to let Ross Insurance, a vampire, advertise through his internet advertising company, which has no shadow, and then cooperate with Microsoft, Greg felt too whimsical. Do you know how much it costs to build a company? how many procedures need to be handled, and how many people need to be recruited. Greg threw a lot of questions at Song Yang. Song Yang listened to Gleek's words and said something that made Gleek speechless, "Isn't there Uncle Gleek?" Looking at Song Yang's eyes, Greg's eyes twitched fiercely, and Song Yang had already counted his cheap uncle into it. Greg let out a long sigh of relief and said a sentence that the most famous lawyer in his law firm and his boss used most often: "I charge a lot." Song Yang directly spread his hands, meaning to let Greg write a check to him at will. "Anyway, the money is still in his hands. What about the location? Even if I give you the compensation, I'm afraid it won't be enough." Song Yang thought for a moment, then said, "I remember the Bruno family. There was a car garage next to Highway 7 in Harris County." Greg glared at Song Yang. He felt that Song Yang was really rude, plucking the wild goose and wanting to bald the Bruno family. The old Bruno couple didn't have much property. The car used to be the home of the Bruno family, but after so many years, Gleek and the others had their own families, and the garage was basically put on hold. In the study, Greg was thinking about this matter. He felt a little unreliable, but looking at Song Yang's determined expression, this was the first time Song Yang had officially discussed something with him in so many years. "Song, you have to know what you are doing, you only have one chance." Greg exhaled a long breath, looked at Song Yang and said with a serious tone, "In half a year, if there is no improvement, I will let it go." Song Yang also assured Greg that the survival cycle of the internet industry has always been very short. "Funds, I'm afraid it will last that long at most. $27,600, this is the compensation left by Catherine." Gleck's expression was a little sad when he mentioned this money. Seeing Gleck getting up and going to the safe in the corner of the study to get the money, Song Yang said, "I will use the money well." Gleck glanced at Song Yang with a look that he thought too much. He took out the folding knife from the safe and put it on the table. "This is $5,000, you have to let me see what you are doing before you can get the funds behind." Song Yang felt that Gleck still didn't believe him, but Gleck didn't change his mind at all, expecting to give all the money at one time. He felt that Song Yang thought too much. "You will see it." Song Yang took the money and said. Devers School baseball training ground. Old Mark breathed a little while looking at Song Yang in front of him. "You're quitting the school baseball team, do you know what you're talking about?" Song Yang will be very busy in the next period of time. It is estimated that he will take a long time off at Devers School, not to mention baseball training. "I may have some problems with my state and need to go to treatment. If I can get my state back, I will continue to return to the baseball team." Song Yang said to Old Mark, seeing the rest of the baseball team, including Stanton, all looking over here. Song Yang continued, "I like baseball, I want to be the next Levia, I am baseball. I won't give up unless the hospital gives me a notice." In the last sentence, Song Yang deliberately glanced at Stanton, who was like a bear. The latter's eyes were about to burst into flames when he heard this. What does this mean? He blamed Stanton for co-authoring it. He ruined a Riviera genius. This pot is too dark, Stanton can't bear it. If the media finds out, I don't know how it will be spread. Old Mark could hear the meaning of Song Yang's words. He knew that Song Yang was not going to continue to work the baseball field. When Song Yang left the training ground, he greeted everyone on the baseball team, then left Devers School and got into a car. "Are you ready? Ask for comments, collections, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, all kinds of requests, please support me." End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 7, Digging a Corner, Seeking Collection. Chapter 7 Digging a Corner, for Collection. Gallo, who was wearing a towed mirror, sat in the driver's seat, chewing gum, and still asked Song Yang in a casual tone, but he didn't consciously take a bit of seriousness. Gallo also came from this step. Although the racing company he participated in was selling dog meat, he had gone through everything he had to go through. He understood what price he had to pay for that idea at the beginning, and even more so. Not to mention Song Yang, who has no way back. Song Yang didn't say a word, just patted the pocket that contained the beautiful knife. He opened the bow without turning back the arrow. For Song Yang, this was the only way he could solve the current predicament, although it might still be difficult to walk. The car was heading for Highway 7 in Harris County. Houston is the county seat of Harris County. There are also some stone statues in memory of Sam Houston. If he hadn't pushed Texas to join America, the Texas Cowboys would still be here. Blocks belong to Mexican turf for grazing. Except for dozens of high-rise buildings in the central area, the buildings in the rest of the city are basically not too high. As an area without planning laws, this place is enough to reflect the free-spirited character of the cowboy, and the buildings in the whole city are very scattered. But along the way, Song Yang saw the brands of giant companies in petroleum, chemical, energy, shipping, ports, aviation, etc. These are the main industries in Houston now. Thanks to the unreasonable development of Houston, the location where the Bruno family garage is located is no longer remote, and even a community, a store, and a McDonald's have appeared. Looking at the old garage, and then looking left and right, Song Yang felt that at least he didn't have to worry about being hungry. Gallo took out the key and opened the garage door, and immediately a cloud of dust poured out, and Gallo jumped aside immediately. The garage is now basically being used as a grocery store. The garage area is not large, but it is not too small. It is enough for a few people to work, but obviously it needs to be renovated, otherwise it will not be able to settle down. If nothing else, Song Yang is the first time for 2 generations. The established company will be registered here. Looks like this place needs to be cleaned by the next Rivera himself. Gallo looked at the dusty garage and was reluctant to come in and eat dirt. Song Yang gave him a middle finger. The next Disney, HP, and Apple will be born here, and you don't want to join. It seems correct to say that HP, Apple, etc. are indeed born in warehouses. According to this company has already stood on the same starting line with Apple and HP. Gallo didn't listen to this nonsense. He covered his nose and came in. Looking at the thick dust in the garage, he scratched his head, but he still tried to help Song Yang clean it up. Song Yang was cleaning the garage, and in addition to some groceries, he also found some other things, and Gallo could be heard shouting from time to time. Song, do you remember this? You've been pestering Greg for a long time, and finally on your birthday, Nathan and I raised money to buy it for you. Nathan is also one of Song Yang's eldest cousins, but the son of another aunt. The family moved to New York a few years ago due to job changes. Song Yang looked at a figure that Gallo was holding in his hand. It was a Superman doll figure, but the image was a little different from that of later generations. Song Yang felt a little vague about what Gallo said, but he had some vague impressions. For many years. The garage was dusty, but he also found a lot of things, such as comics from Marvel's early years, posters of Superman and Batman, etc. Song Yang put them away. These things are not very valuable now. After a few years, when Song Yang and Gallo are middle-aged, these things are estimated to be scarce. In order to satisfy the memory killing, it is estimated that they will be sold at auctions. Robbed. Not only need to clean the warehouse, but also need to check the wiring, water pipes, pull the network cable and arrange some daily necessities. Found 2 broken chairs. Song Yang and Gallo lay at the garage door, took out the drinks that Gallo was going to bring to the party, and blew a bottle at each other. It's been a long time since I've been here. Gallo said with a slight sigh as he looked at the warehouse that was gradually looking like he had imagined before. In the past, the Bruno family were all in Houston. Gallo, Nathan and others often brought Song Yang and other Bruno family members around, and the garage was not less frequent, but now Nathan everyone else has already left here. It was rare to see this scene of Gallo. Song Yang knew that he would not fall into memory killing. Sure enough, within a few minutes, Gallo glanced at the time and began to jump up. Damn, the party is about to start, Haley. Still waiting for me. While busy changing clothes, Gallo did not forget to say to Song Yang, would you like to go to the party? Haley has invited several nice girls, what else do you need? I'll bring it for you tomorrow. Song Yang shook his head and handed a piece of paper to Gallo. Gallo looked down and saw the models of monitors, motherboards, and graphics cards on it. Gallo looked confused. Computer parts, I need you to buy them for me. Song Yang reluctantly said that the price of a mainstream computer is more than $3,000, and the funding given by Gleick is only so little. Enough. Gallo was stunned when he heard it. and looked at Song Yang up and down. He had never heard of Song Yang's ability to assemble computers. This thing has not yet become popular in computers, and it is considered a technical job. You can assemble. I read the manual. Gallo was speechless for a while, and extended a thumb to Song Yang. He understood, Song Yang's path was much wilder than him. By the way, you let me meet Bledsoe Jaden as soon as possible. Song Yang said to Gallo, who was in a hurry to leave to go to the party. Bledsoe Jaden is very important to Song Yang next. Song Yang will of course type the code, but there is a fundamental difference between getting a code program now and decades later, and it is impossible for Song Yang to be a complete set of programs. After knocking, you will definitely need help. Gallo gestured toward Song Yang to get it done, and then drove away in a hurry. Devers' school, Jenny, who had not seen Song Yang at the training grounds, was a little disappointed and was about to leave. She hadn't seen Song Yang in the past few days, and Ms. Donna answered the phone. Song quit the baseball team and his game has been affected. A passing varsity baseball player's eyes lit up when he saw Jenny, and then said with a regretful expression, and inadvertently showed his muscles that he had worked hard for. But Jenny didn't pay attention to those at all. Compared with Song Yang, the face in front of her couldn't bear to look directly. She thanked her and left with her head raised, leaving behind a depressed baseball player. Song Yang has basically been squatting in the garage these days, assembling the computer parts that Gallo brought over. A computer has been assembled. The mouse has the mouse, the snake has the snake. Song Yang doesn't care where Gallo got these parts, but the price is really cheap. Assembling a computer with the same configuration as Gateway and Dell, the total cost does not exceed $1,800. The cost of the same type of machine on the market exceeds $3,000. It has to be said that now belongs to the era of huge profits for computer hardware. Gallo squatted on the chair and used a computer assembled by Song Yang with the HP logo hanging on it. In fact, the internal parts were various computers from different brands, playing Microsoft's game of digging mines. I can't believe that, Song, you still have this skill. Is it really inherited? Gallo raised his head in his busy schedule and looked at Song Yang, who was still assembling a computer. A computer brand store is also quite good. This guy saw that Song Yang actually assembled the computer made of the Wangwa army parts, and how much these parts cost. Selling an assembled computer is much better than repairing it. The car also earns more. Song Yang glanced at Gallo and ignored this guy. What kind of crazy idea he was thinking, Song Yang didn't know. He just wanted to assemble a non-brand computer and sell it as a brand computer. This is bullying. He didn't know much about computers. Song Yang wasn't that wicked. How's the contact with Jaden? Song Yang raised his head and asked. At this moment, Gallo's second-hand Motorola cell phone rang suddenly. Gallo picked up the phone. Brother. Song Yang pricked up his ears, knowing that Jaden was calling, and as expected, Gallo hung up the phone after blowing some on the phone, and said proudly to Song Yang, "It's done, Jaden is going to a party today, let's go together." Past. But I still have to say, even if Jaden is my brother, but the idea of you wanting him here is really a bit. Gallo waved his hand helplessly, showing a look of laughter and tears. He already knew Song Yang's plan to let Jaden, a college student in Houston, come here to be a bully for Song Yang. Gallo thought it was a bit nonsense. That's my business. Song Yang fixed the last screw. Now that there are two computers in the garage, Song Yang can rely on the next. Hurriedly changed his clothes, Song Yang said to Gallo, "Send me to Devers." To go to a party, you naturally need to bring girls, although it is actually an ordinary student party. It was already afternoon. After Song Yang came to Devers, he came to the dance training room with ease. Song Yang didn't know why he was so familiar. I'm afraid this can only be asked about the original body. Obviously, it is not the first time here. Jenny is doing basic skills in the training room with some girls from the art department and cheerleaders, but there is no one else around Jenny, only her, and on the opposite side, Ibra is surrounded by many girls. Ibra is the man of the year in Devers. Even if it is not the most beautiful one, she is the one with the most conversations, especially the recent two Song Yang and Stanton. For her fight, Ibra is even more so. Ra became a much talked about presence at Devers. And Ibra's family is also quite good in Devers. Naturally, some followers are indispensable. Ibra, who was surrounded by a group of girls, glanced at Jenny with a little provocation. I heard that Jenny seems to be very close to Song Yang recently, which makes Ibra feel like she has been dug into a corner. End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 8, Shop Sign. Chapter 8 Signboard. Song Yang was regarded by Ibra as something in his pocket. Although he did not have a definite relationship with Song Yang, Ibra did not want to be dug into a corner. Ibila didn't pay much attention to Jenny before, but it wasn't until Song Yang was injured this time that Jenny and Song Yang got closer that Ibra felt provoked. She looked at Jenny in tight training suits, her figure was a little plumper than Ibila, and her face was a little more delicate than hers, but Ibra thought that it was impossible to catch a man with just his face and body. Seeing Jenny stretching and her body becoming an S-shaped body, Ibra scolded inwardly, big and no brains, bitchy. Jenny also noticed Ibra's gaze, and she just ignored it and didn't want to have any conflict with Ibra here. The disadvantage is that Jenny is not stupid, otherwise why would she take such an opportunity to get close to her? Song Yang's relationship. The door of the dance training room was pushed open, and a long figure stood at the door. The light of the setting sun just fell on Song Yang's face, just like the scene in the comics. The girl who turned back from the dance room saw at this scene, I couldn't help but lose my mind for a moment. I have to say that this thing is really unreasonable. If another man came to the training room at this time, there would have been a lot of scolding, but Song Yang stood here, but there was no scolding, and even surrounded Ibra. The girls next to him all looked at Song Yang with fiery eyes. Song. Ibra was the first to speak, and saw Song Yang standing at the door with a smile on her face. She glanced in the direction of Jenny, and when she saw the loss on the latter's face, the smile on her face became even more prosperous. Why are you here? Don't tell me in advance, I didn't see you when I went to the baseball team. I have something to do these days. Song Yang replied casually, his eyes swept across the training room, seeing the mountains of different sizes, distances and heights, and then his eyes were placed on Jenny, which made Song Yang's eyes suddenly brighten up. He was training in baseball. When he was on stage, he had already felt it faintly, but now that he saw Jenny in the dance training suit behind him, Song Yang had the concept. Walked up to Jenny, Song Yang stretched out a hand, and under Jenny's surprised eyes, Song Yang made an invitation, "Can I have the honor to invite you to a party with me tonight?" Jenny couldn't believe it. Ibra's smile stiffened on her face. Although she was surprised, Jenny still gave her hand to Song Yang. It wasn't until Song Yang took Jenny out of the training room that all the girls in the training room looked at Ibra with strange eyes, and many of them showed schadenfreude smiles. A pair of dogs and men, Ibra felt the gazes all around her, and she couldn't help but curse, especially Jenny, who was greeted countless times by Ibra's words beginning with F. As for Song Yang, Ibra still thinks he's been seduced. Take Jenny back home and change into a set of clothes. Song Yang, Jenny, Gallo and Haley head towards the southeast area of Houston. The University of Houston is over there. Tonight's party is at the University of Houston. In a nearby student apartment. So, what are you doing these days? Jenny changed her clothes and got into the car in a dizzy way. She felt a little happy, but also a little hard to say. Tomorrow, the whole Devers school will probably hear that Song Yang invited her. The news of going to the party together, Jenny didn't know what kind of relationship she had with Song Yang. It won't be long before you know. Looking at Song Yang outside the car window, he turned his head and said to Jenny. Unlike Ibra, Haley and Jenny talked very speculatively. Both of them wanted to develop in the art, film and television industry. After a while, the topic turned to cosmetics, clothes, celebrities and other fields. When Song Yang and Jenny walked into the apartment where the party was being held, there were already many men and women writhing to the deafening music, drinks mixed with various smells, and the air in the apartment was not very good. It was the first time she came to this kind of senior party. Jenny seemed a little excited and a little scared. She saw that as soon as she came in, several people's eyes were on her. If she hadn't held Song Yang's arm, I'm afraid she would have someone came over to chat. Song Yang had no interest in participating in the party, but just followed behind Gallo, thinking about Bledsoe Jaden who was about to meet. As soon as he entered the apartment, Gallo bumped fists and greeted a few people from time to time. He was obviously familiar with the place. After asking a few questions, he took Song Yang and the others to the backyard of the apartment. There was a swimming pool, a group of people of different skin colors, dressed in girls in bikinis are having fun in the pool. These girls are obviously different from those students. They are obviously invited from outside models, agencies, etc. to liven up the atmosphere. Obviously, the people who are hosting the party today will probably spend a lot of money. Jaden. Gallo walked over to a man wearing glasses, a plaid shirt and jeans, who was holding a glass of wine and was next to a few other people dressed in the same clothes, and grabbed the other person's neck. "My brother, long time no see." Gallo, it was Bledsoe Jaden who was being held by Gallo, and said to the people left and right, "This is Gallo, my former classmate." Song Yang looked at Jaden, a typical man in science and engineering. Don't ask Song Yang why he was so clear. The question is that in his previous life, all the brothers and sisters he saw wore this outfit, which can be said to be universal. Gallo talked to Jaden for a few words, then brought Song Yang to Jaden. "This is Song, you should remember." Impressed, Jaden smiled when he saw Song Yang. "I remember at our prom, he collected a lot of girls' phone numbers." The black history was brought up again. Song Yang was also a little embarrassed. Song Yang didn't know how many unreliable things this predecessor had done, and he was waiting for Song Yang to fill the hole. "You are so eager to see me because of him?" Jaden glanced at Song Yang and looked at Gallo in confusion. Gallo shrugged. "I think it's very important, at least for Song." "Jaden, can we talk about it? This is really important to me, and of course it may be the same for you." Seeing Song Yang's serious look, Jaden shook his head. Obviously he didn't take Song Yang's words too seriously, but after glancing at Gallo, he still nodded. Song Yang gave Hailey a wink and asked her to take good care of Jenny. Hailey is an absolute party creature with rich experience. If Hailey did not take care of her, Song Yang was really afraid that Jenny would suffer. Came to a room, although there was still a sense of sound vibration after closing the door, but at least you don't need to shout, you can hear what the other party is saying. "What are we going to talk about?" Jaden looked around at Gallo and Song Yang and said, not taking it too seriously. Song Yang didn't touch the wine, he pushed the wine glass aside, so as not to paralyze his nerves. "Gallo told me that you are the best computer technician in Houston." Hearing this little flattery, Jaden just laughed, and then Song Yang's words made him not know whether to cry or laugh. "You want me to join your internet project?" When Song Yang invited him to join the project, Jaden said with tears in his eyes. He even had some doubts. Song Yang didn't even know what the internet was. Jaden heard that Stanford and some colleges and universities near Silicon Valley now have a high tide of internet entrepreneurship, but he didn't know how the Houston side also began to appear. And it was still one. Jaden looked at Song Yang a few more times, and even someone who had not even gone to college brought it up. Song Yang didn't back down, he still wanted to convince Jaden to work in his garage. "No, it was a joint venture. I believe that as long as you see my project, you will definitely be willing to join it. It will open up a new world of the internet." The key. Listening to the chicken blood is indeed a little impulsive, but Jaden did not agree. If it was proposed by a professor of a university, or a famous person in the internet industry for a long time, then Jaden must have believed it, but Song Yang when it was proposed, Jaden was still a little unconvinced. Seeing this, Song Yang put forward another set of arguments. "Then I want to ask Jaden to help me complete this project, and I will pay you enough." Hearing that Song Yang wanted to hire him with money, Jaden knew that Song Yang was really not joking. "I need to see the project before I can make a decision and pay." Jaden still wants to wait and see. $10,000, help me complete this project. Song Yang directly asked for the price. Gallo was taken aback, and he winked at Song Yang anxiously. The whole cost was only so much, and he even gave Jaden such a high price. $30,000. Jaden thought for a while and watched Song Yang speak again. "Jaden, we're brothers." Hearing Bledsoe Jaden's lion's mouth to slap Song Yang, Gallo was a little dissatisfied, and called Jaden's name several times in a row. Jaden showed a helpless expression. I'm also about to graduate, I need a graduation thesis and go to Silicon Valley to find a job, these are all time. You can stay in the project. Song Yang still wanted to keep Jaden for free. Jaden shook his head. Obviously, he wanted to go to Silicon Valley. Even if he helped Song Yang, it was for the sake of the knife. $15,000, help me complete the software development before May. Seeing this, Song Yang could only increase the price. Seeing that Jaden was still a little hesitant, Gallo on the side stood up straight. Jaden, what are you still hesitating about? This is $15,000, are you still my brother? Jaden smiled reluctantly, then stretched out his hand to Song Yang. If the project really comes true, don't forget me. Song Yang and Gallo on the side did not take this sentence seriously, and even Jaden just said it casually, but human nature is sometimes hard to guess. Basically they are acquaintances, so Song Yang asked Greg to formulate a contract, and it was not too harsh, and the internet is now an emerging industry, and there is no experience to refer to, so except for the company's equity and patents that clearly belong to Song Yang, the rest the conditions are not strict, and some are verbal agreements. When he came to the garage the next day, after seeing the environment, Jaden regretted it a little, but he had already agreed, so he could only bite the bullet and sign. On February 25, 1995, when Greg brought a pile of documents, Song Yang's Grasstop team finally stood up, and the words, "DoubleClick Advertising Company," were sprayed with paint on the door of the garage as a signboard. End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 9, Tyrant, Seeking Monthly Pass. Chapter 9 Tyrant, Seeking Monthly Pass. From the outside, the DoubleClick Advertising Company is very simple now. Except for a painted signboard, there are only 2 IWC computers in the garage, as well as second-hand printers, fax machines, etc., which are worth a few money. For Song Yang, this was the first company that belonged to him. With the little funding from Gleek, it was really hard to get this. Greg still had a serious face, but looking at the garage on Highway 7, it was a good thing. He knew that Song Yang didn't squander that money. Outside the garage, Gallo and Haley were taking pictures with a borrowed Kodak camera. After all, today is a memorable day. It's a little unreliable, but I still took pictures and recorded it. After Song Yang took a photo alone, he called Jaden and others over to take a photo together. Song Yang shouted to Greg in the garage, "Uncle Greg, you also need to stand here, you are DoubleClick Advertising. Our legal advisor and future legal president." Hearing this, Gleik's brows twitched fiercely. Song Yang really didn't miss a chance to prostitute, and directly handed over the legal affairs of double-clicking the advertisement to Gleik's management, but in addition to Gleik, Song Yang also looked for there are no other lawyers, the key is to find other lawyers to spend money, and to find Gleik basically for free, maybe Gleik will have to pay the DoubleClick Advertising Company. No matter what he thought, Greg stood with Song Yang, and this photo was frozen. There are 3 people in the photo. Song Yang is full of smiles and seems to be looking forward to it. Greg is as serious as ever, as if he is facing a big enemy. And the last person, Jaden, had a frowning expression, as if he had entered a wolf's den. After the photo shoot, it's time for Gallo and Haley to come on stage, and there's a party tonight to celebrate the launch of DoubleClick Advertising. Uncle Gleek, in the future, there will be a lot of legal affairs for the DoubleClick Advertising Company, and you need to handle them all. Song Yang said to Gleik, who was about to leave. Greg didn't take this to heart, and took out an envelope containing the funds and put it in front of Song Yang. "I don't care what you do, the next payment still depends on how far you have achieved." Song Yang watched Greg's leaving figure, turned his head and pulled Jaden, who was debugging the computer, and pulled him outside the garage to help set up the venue. Tonight is the last time to relax, and it will start tomorrow. Live in hell. Jaden feels like in this garage, and I don't know where it will go. In the evening, a large group of men and women came to the 7th Highway garage to have a party. The guys from Gallo Motors and Song Yang's group at Devers School came to join in the fun, and of course Jenny was there too. Hailey called over her group of model sisters. When the DJ music played and the bottles of wine were moved out, no matter what the conditions were, the demons began to dance. "So, during this period of time, you established a company?" Jenny looked at the garage in front of her and was amazed. This was beyond her expectations. Song Yang nodded, naturally blowing a little moisture in front of the girl. An internet media company. All internet companies in the future will need it. Like Microsoft? The few tech figures she has ever heard of are probably Microsoft and Bill Gates. Jenny looked at Song Yang with bright eyes. Then will you reach the level of Bill Gates? If I get to the point of Bill Gates, I'll make you an Oscar winner. Hailey, who was passing by, couldn't help rolling her eyes when she heard the conversation between Song Yang and Jenny, and complained about scumbag. A few days ago, she said the same thing to Hailey from Song Yang's mouth. Again. Sure enough, as soon as Hailey turned around, she saw that Jenny had red lips and took the initiative to join the scumbag. Hailey thought, silly girl, again. She felt that Jenny was still too tender, and she would wait until she entered the art industry. Later, she knew how deep the water was. The carnival went on for most of the night. Song Yang and Jenny lingered for a while, and finally sent her back before the red line time for her to go home at Jenny's house. When Song Yang went to the garage in the morning, there were still a few drunkards lying in and outside the garage. Jaden was also unconscious yesterday. Song Yang chased away the drunkards, and cleaned up inside and outside the garage. In the afternoon, the double-click advertising company officially started operation, but soon, Jaden felt that he had encountered a tyrant. Song Yang put a copy of the system software architecture and design requirements in front of Jaden. Seeing the above requirements, Jaden's head suddenly became big, and his head started to hurt again after a night of hangover. In front of Jaden is a design requirement of a software system, mainly an advertisement delivery system center. Through the advertisement delivery system, the advertisement can be initially planned and designed, and then placed on the docking website. The advertisements placed are managed. In addition, through the placement system, you can know the click-through rate, placement time, and advertising sales share, profit, etc. Of course, Song Yang wasn't ready to eat a fat man in one go. The requirements for this delivery system were quite high, and even after 5 or 6 years, the technology would not be completely outdated. Even Microsoft's computer system has only gradually matured after more than 10 years of upgrades. Therefore, the advertising delivery system launched by Song Yang for double-click advertising is basically selling dog meat. On the partner website, it is enough to detect the click rate of the advertisement, and the remaining functions will be implemented slowly. But even so, the amount of work is not small. Jaden looks at it and feels that his more than $10,000 is a huge loss. In addition to this system, Song Yang also added several inconspicuous, small technologies to this design, ready to be used for patent applications. The most important of which are the two technologies of interactive network and one-click ordering. The former means that the user sees a web page and wants to open it. As long as the mouse clicks to open the web page, this action is called interactive network technology. As for whether this thing belongs to a rogue patent, Song Yang is unwilling to control it, but he knows that as long as this thing can get away with it and apply for a patent in America, Europe and other places, then there will be one website in the world, and it will have to be double-clicked. The advertising company pays the money. As for the second patent, one-click ordering, you can tell from the name. It is mainly used in the field of e-commerce. There is no need to enter cumbersome information and no verification code. You can purchase products with just one-click ordering. It is a one-click order patent. This is one of Song Yang's most impressive and rogue patents. When he saw it in his previous life, Song Yang only knew how deep the water in the internet industry is. With this patent alone, Amazon's disgusting colleagues almost stopped crying. Since the beginning of this patent, hundreds of millions of dollars have been obtained just by collecting patent fees. In addition to the two major patents of switching network and one-click ordering, Song Yang also included several patents such as one-click payment, relying on the double-click advertising company's advertising delivery system, as well as these major patents. Song Yang's life cannot be said to be good. Looking at the boss who is much younger than him, Jaden pulled his hair and said, "Have you studied programming, know how much technology it requires, and how much code to write?" "I've taught myself and read programming books." Song Yang replied indifferently, "Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise. The penalty is 500,000 yuan. Jaden just remembered that when he signed the employment agreement yesterday, Song Yang deliberately added a clause on liquidated damages to it, which completely stopped Jaden from running away. Stayed for a while before Jaden started programming with a bitter look on his face. Inadvertently, Jaden saw that Song Yang was also programming. Jaden was curious and saw that Song Yang was really programming. Although the speed was very slow, he had to take a look at the programming software textbook from time to time. Jaden was surprised. He pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose and looked at Song Yang a few more times. He did not expect that Song Yang did not lie to him, he really taught himself programming. Seeing Song Yang as his employer, he was busy with his work, so Jaden could not complain anymore, he could only start to be a bull. Song Yang is building an official website for DoubleClick advertising company. People rely on clothes and horses relying on saddles, as the world's first internet advertising company, naturally also needs branding. Anyway, no one is arguing with DoubleClick advertising company now, so various words, such as, the world's first internet advertising technology company, the world's leading internet media, America's internet advertising technology leader, etc. Double-click the official website of the advertising company to post it. However, the programming language is now a bit different from later generations. Song Yang is also very difficult to do. At this time, he can see the benefits of having Jaden as a bull and horse. Otherwise, relying on Song Yang alone, he still doesn't know how to get the year of the monkey. But for Jaden, it's not good news. Song Yang has high requirements for the advertising delivery system, and he can see the bugs and mistakes in his programming, so he keeps revising it. Jaden feels like living in hell. Since the establishment of DoubleClick advertising company, at the beginning, there was a group of people who came to join in the fun that day, but the freshness was gone. Except for Gallo and Haley, and Jenny who came to Song Yang from time to time, other people run away long ago. Song Yang basically ran back and forth between Dever's school and the garage, and Jaden did the same. In order not to carry the $500,000 liquidated damages, he had to toss back and forth between the University of Houston and the garage. The contract has already been signed. Let's try to vote for the monthly vote and see if your voting button works. Thank you Book Friends 20180313221552053, Book Friends 20170624224129560, Book Friends Juan Bao for the reward, everyone support. End of this chapter. Back to 1995 Chapter 10, I Can't Open the Pot. Chapter 10. This system must be improved, and the background must be able to dynamically track the published advertisements. It's impossible, it's not something that can be done now. In the garage next to Highway 7, there was another quarrel. Since the establishment of DoubleClick advertising, such quarrels have happened several times a day almost every day. Song Yang and Jaden were both panting, their eyes wide open, and no one was willing to take a step back. In the end, the compensation was 500,000 yuan, which overwhelmed Jaden's anger. You are a tyrant, I don't know which other boss in the world has so many demands. Jaden didn't forget to complain when he sat down. That's why you didn't meet Steve Jobs. Song Yang also murmured in his heart, if this is replaced by Gang Master Chiao, it is estimated that Jaden will be sprayed with autism. Song Yang is already very kind. Quarrel and busyness are basically what Song Yang has to do every day during this period of time, so Song Yang didn't even bother to taste Jenny's cream cake during this period of time. Although there are constant quarrels, the core of the entire DoubleClick advertising company, the advertising delivery system, is also steadily advancing. The DART advertising system must be completed, this is all we have. It's yours. Jaden said with a small temper. This system tortured him so much that he almost doubted going to Silicon Valley. The DART system is the system being developed by DoubleClick advertising. The most important thing is dynamic advertising and targeting. At least in this year, this advertising system is quite advanced, at least in terms of concept. Lasutu Jaden, only the ghost knows what he can develop. Theoretically, this DART advertising delivery system can track and analyze which type of advertisements users have the highest click-through rate, and which type of advertisements has the highest degree of acceptance for dynamic, static, sponsorship and other types of advertisements. Looking at Jaden, who was whispering and scolding himself in his heart, Song Yang just pretended not to hear it. He also knew that Jaden had a lot of work. Even with Song Yang's help, he still worked overtime constantly. Song Yang hurried forward. Song Yang can't do anything either. The only person he can find now is Jaden. As for hiring tech giants from Silicon Valley, it's basically just thinking about it. Just the cost of Jaden will almost bankrupt Song Yang. There was a rumbling sound from outside the garage. Song Yang knew who was coming as soon as he heard the sound of the broken car. After a while, a modified car suddenly stopped in front of the garage. Before anyone got out of the car, the voice came out, "The future Bill Gates, the richest man in Houston, it's time to come out for dinner." Since that day, since Jenny's words came out, Gallo has used these words to ridicule Song Yang. Gallo and Haley got off the bus together. Gallo put a meal in front of Song Yang. "Donna prepared it for you." After Gallo came in, he occupied Song Yang's computer and started playing with the computer. Although Song Yang's computer was a Wanguo brand, the computer had been debugged by Song Yang. Runs much faster. Haley also sat beside her boredly, picked up a magazine, and flipped through it randomly. Now the freshness of Gallo and Haley has passed. DoubleClick Advertising Company has been established for more than a month, but there has been no movement. As for relying on Song Yang to enter Hollywood or something, it will soon become ridiculed. "Donna complained to me that you haven't been back for a long time," Gallo said to Song Yang while playing on the computer. Song Yang brought Gallo to the food. I don't know if he found out that he was cooking Chinese food. The way seems to be a little off. This time Anna cooked basically Italian dishes, pasta, salad, grilled chicken, etc. Song Yang took out half of it and gave it to Jaden, who almost vomited after eating fast food. For more than a month, Song Yang and him were basically eating fast food from the McDonald's on the same horse as long as he was in the garage. Song Yang had an idea that he would be so rich in the future that McDonald's would have to switch to selling Chinese snacks. After taking a big mouthful, Song Yang said to Gallo, "I don't have enough time to sleep during this time." At Devers school, Song Yang took leave twice every 3 days. He was usually busy in the garage at night before he could sleep. Song Yang was grateful to Stanton's bear at this time. If it weren't for him, Song Yang would be true. It's hard to find a reason to take leave. Gallo just played a few games when another car drove up outside the garage. Seeing this car, Gallo said to Haley, "We should go." When Gleek got out of the car, he didn't seem to see the pair of dog men and women Gallo and Haley. Not only did he have an opinion on Gallo, but Gleek had a bigger opinion on Haley. What he wanted Gallo to take was "It's no wonder that Italian girls have a good impression of Gallo and Haley." Uncle Gleek. Song Yang immediately stepped forward when he saw Gleek. Gleek is now the owner of the money. Whether this little broken garage can survive depends on whether the owner of Gleek will give him money. Song Yang brought Greg into the garage, and before Greg could speak, Song Yang turned on the computer familiarly. "We are still developing the system, but we are making great progress, isn't it, Jaden?" Jaden, who was nibbling on the roast chicken, heard Song Yang's words and gave him the back of his head. Song Yang's eyelids jumped a few times, but he still said to Greg, "Look at this." Greg sat on the computer, clicked a few times with the mouse, and entered a website. During this time, thanks to the DoubleClick Advertising Company, Blake's internet experience has also become more and more enriched. Looking at the website on the screen, Gleek knew that this was the official website of the DoubleClick Advertising Company, and saw Gleek of several websites. Looking at the official website of the DoubleClick Advertising Company in front of him, his eyes lit up, and a beautiful feeling came into his heart. Jaden, who was nibbling on the roast chicken, looked up and saw Greg's expression. He was not surprised at all. When he first saw the official website that Song Yang had built, he was also amazed. Jaden is reluctant to admit that there are geniuses in the world, but sometimes there is no place to justify it. From the aspect of internet design alone, Jaden feels that Song Yang, who has read a few computer books, seems to be better than his professional background. Man, the talent is much higher. From the architectural design of the Dart advertising delivery system to the design of the official website of the DoubleClick advertising company, it was all completed by Song Yang. Jaden was basically used as a horse and he was writing code according to Song Yang's architecture. Compared to now, it is still rudimentary. Even some official websites and web pages with full text, double-click the official website of the advertising company, there are no fancy things, the entire web page is composed of three main colors of blue and black. From the perspective of future generations, the homepage of this website is a bit retro, but for the current website design that has not yet emerged, the website of DoubleClick company is definitely exquisite, fashionable and full of trend. The upper and lower boxes are black and white. The upper left corner is the name of the DoubleClick advertising company, and then the home page in the middle is blue and white. The most conspicuous place is the words of tigers and wolves that make Jaden blush. He has never seen such a thick skin. Website. You are the best internet media company in the world. This is the first word you see when you enter the official website of DoubleClick advertising. Anyway, there is no rival now. No one can refute Song Yang's hype about the DoubleClick advertising company. The world's #1 internet advertising company, America's leading technology, top market share, etc., all appear in DoubleClick, the introduction of the advertising company's official website. The entire official website page is basically divided into company introduction, technical cooperation, official contact, etc. If you just look at the website, there is a sense of grandeur. It is estimated that the existing official websites around the world are more humble than DoubleClick advertising companies. No one would have thought that if they climbed over the network cable, they would fall into a garage. Greg looked at the website, and then looked around at the scene in front of him, which made him sigh at the tearing of the internet from reality. Greek got up and sat down on a reclining chair at the entrance of the garage. Several parasols and reclining chairs were placed at the entrance of the garage as a place to rest. According to Song Yang's fight against Jaden, don't look at the fact that they can only sleep on recliners at the entrance of the garage. Later, when DoubleClick advertising company becomes rich, they have to build an open-air balcony in the building opposite the Empire State Building in New York to lie down and open their eyes. Empire State Building, but Jaden doesn't drink this bowl of chicken soup at all. Looking at Song Yang with messy hair and eye circles in front of him, Greg knew that Song Yang was really fighting to DoubleClick the advertising company. Several patents have been applied to the American Patent Office. Patent applications in Europe, Asia and other places will also be processed, but you must think about it. After applying for a patent, you have to pay a patent fee every year, which is not a small amount of money. The law firm where Gleick works has the business of patent agency, but the patent application is not a one-off report, but a fee is paid every year, and the patent application to Europe, Asia and other places at the same time, the fee is even higher. For Song Yang, speaking of which, these patent fees are definitely not a small burden. Apply for all of them. Song Yang said without hesitation. He had to get these patents, otherwise it would be impossible to draw water from a bamboo basket. Gleick handed another envelope to Song Yang, and when Song Yang stretched out his hand, he held the envelope again and whispered to Song Yang, "I need to remind you, according to the current DoubleClick company's capital consumption rate, at the end of May before, the funds would be exhausted, not including the commission you promised Jaden." Song Yang glanced at Jaden with a guilty conscience. He did not give all the money to Jaden, but gave part of it, and the other part was given to him when the system development was completed. He took compensation from Jaden, but Jaden sued Song Yang. "I know, but Uncle Greg." Before Song Yang could finish speaking, Greg said directly, "We talked, until the money runs out, you will go back to school, whether it's a community college or something, continue with everything you should do." Looking at Greg who was leaving, Song Yang rubbed his cheeks. If he really needed it, Song Yang could still get some money from Greg, Gallo, and even old Bruno. But Song Yang had to think about what to do as soon as possible. He didn't have that much money, and he didn't have the time to continue spending it. Asking for a monthly pass, all the officials, please help to cast the monthly pass. If you save the monthly pass, it will expire. Hurry up and vote. There is a cover post in the comment area. Let's see which cover looks good, and show your support. End of this chapter.